Hello again, and welcome to another set of videos. This one now for week 11 of the semester. And in these two assignments which we will have this week are covering a little bit more of logarithms, starting with 4.3 and also covering 4.4. And both of these sections are due on my math lab this coming Sunday. Also, something to mention that you'll see on eCollege and on my email I will send out this week along with the video is our next exam is next week. So soon this week I'll be posting a set of review videos. I've already posted a review for the exam up on eCollege, and probably will have that also available somewhere in my math lab if you need to find it there too. But the second exam is going to cover everything, so you may want to, if you're watching this video, then you'll also know this part about the exam. Exam 2 is going to cover everything from Chapter 4 up to, but not including, 4.5. So we'll stop right at 4.4. It also is going to cover Chapter 3. So those two sections and those two chapters will be covered on the exam. So everything basically up through this week's homework is what will be on this next exam. This next exam might be a little bit longer than the first one, mainly because we have covered some different kind of topics since the first exam. So the suggestion I have is to work and practice really good on the review, because a lot of those are the kind of questions that you'll need to know for the exam. And my review videos will be there if you need a quick refresher or if you need extra guidance on any of the different kinds of questions on the review. I'll also have the notes posted as well to go along with the review so you can see how to work some of those questions. So that's coming up soon, and you'll want to start as soon as you can to practice. Of course, you may want to even catch up on some of the homework if you've missed a few assignments, just so that you've got up to date on those materials. And all my review videos, or I should say all my prior week videos, are also helpful if you need a refresher on any of the content in this particular part of the class. So email me if you have any questions, if you need any assistance with any of this process. Again, it's really important to be as prepared as you possibly can be before going in there on test day, and practicing the review and the homework and the quizzes that are online are really one of the best ways of getting ready for this test, or any of the tests that we'll have. And but if you're stumped on anything, if you're stuck, just please be in contact, and I'll try to do what I can to help you, give you some pointers, give you some step-by-step guidance on how to follow with some of these questions. But for this video, I'm going to go ahead and show a little bit from 4.3 and 4.4. So what's being covered this week? Starting with 4.3, we're dealing more with logarithms, but we're dealing with something called the logarithm rules. And there are three logarithm rules: the product rule, the quotient rule, and the power rule. So let's run through these real quick to see what they do. The product rule you'll see right here. And what the product rule does is it allows us to take a single logarithm with multiplication inside of it. So here we have the two things being multiplied together, and then we can split that up into two logarithms, where these two logarithms are being added together. So that's the idea of the product rule. Conversely, we can take two logarithms that are added together, join them back into a single logarithm, where the inside things are being multiplied together. And then there's the quotient rule, which works kind of like the product rule. Instead of having multiplication, we have division of two things. When you have division in logarithms, that changes into the subtraction of two logarithms. Or if you have two logarithms which are being subtracted, then that can go back into one logarithm with division on the inside. Okay, and that's a quotient rule. Now the power rule tells us that the exponent, if you have one inside the logarithm here, that can come out to the front of the logarithm, like so. Or, if you have a number out in front of the logarithm, you can bring it back in to the top, and then it would look something like where it started. So it can kind of go both ways with it. And that would be according to the power rule. Okay, let's look at a few examples of these types of situations. Here's a straightforward example, log base 6 of 7 times 11. So since we have these two things being multiplied inside the logarithm, I'm going to use the product rule. That's going to split this up into two logarithms added together. The first one would be log base 6 of 7 plus log base 6 of 11. Okay, and that's how we would split it into two logarithms via the product rule. Now let's look at this next example here where we have log base 4 of 5xy. Okay, so here you've got three different things multiplied together. So we're going to use the product rule again, just like we did in the last one. But I've got to split it up into three different pieces, one for each of the things that are being multiplied on the inside. So I start by going log base 4 of 5, and then we do addition, log base 4 of x, and then lastly log base 4 of y. And now we've split it into three logarithms, each one of them being added together, and that's what the product rule allows us to do. Okay, here's another example where we have the ln of e to the 5th all over 11. Now since these two things are being divided inside the logarithm, this is what we refer to as a quotient rule situation. Okay, inside of the ln. Before we go any further, just to recall that the ln is a logarithm. It's just a shorthand logarithm for log base e. So we might need to know that in some situations. Okay, what does the quotient rule tell us to do with our logarithms? Well, we'll split it into two logarithms. The first one is ln of e to the 5th, but the quotient rule deals with subtraction, so we go minus ln of 11. Okay, again, splitting it into two, but because we had division, we have to use subtraction instead of addition we had on the last example. Now, real quickly, you might notice this on some examples. ln and e kind of go together. And in fact, like I mentioned a second ago, the ln is just another way of writing log base e. Well, if you have log base e of e raised to the 5th power, then those situations cancel with each other, and you just have the 5 left over. So this situation here turns into just 5 minus the other piece, ln of 11. And it doesn't change because there's no canceling that are going on in that situation. But when you see ln and e, they're going to cancel with each other because of the log base e. So this would be our final answer here. Alright, now another example, we have log of x plus 4 raised to the 2nd power. Alright, now since we have a power up here inside of the logarithm, we're going to use the power rule. Power rule says we can take this 2 and bring it out to the front of the logarithm, giving us 2 log of x plus 4. And at this step, we're good to go. We use the power rule to move the exponent to the front, and that's actually all we can do with this logarithm. Keep in mind that we can't split with addition or subtraction. Okay, and so I just mentioned that here because we have x plus 4 inside. We can't go and split it into two, one for x and one for 4. If it's addition inside of a logarithm, then it just stays inside of the logarithm.